G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Apologies for not being online for what seems like quite a while now, and there are some fairly legitimate reasons, and I just thought it'd be a lot easier if I got online, gave you all a little bit of an update, and sort of save you all wondering what the hell happened to me. The coupe is going ahead. I just haven't done any work on it since the last time I posted on YouTube. And the reasons are, well, they're fairly good reasons. It's a combination of the business, the crane business, my property, and my health. So, first of all, there's been a lot of stress over the last 18 months running my crane business through the period of COVID. Like a lot of people who've suffered financially, we were unable to get the JobKeeper, so I had to sort of just soldier on, make things work. But it's taken a bit of a toll on me personally, my health and that, and so just recently I started developing what I think are minor heart issues, and it's a lot of it I think stress related and probably overworking, but I just thought that I need to look after my health, and the second thing is I decided to sell my property. At the same time as saying I needed to look after my health, I needed to get my property ready to sell. So that meant building a pool fence and doing a bunch of improvements around the place, just quickly anyway. And the reason I decided to sell the property was just to relieve stress and sort of start fresh. So I heard that the property market was hot right now. I've got a small acreage block, so I decided to put it up for sale, and yeah, things went really well. I think it was basically within 24 hours of putting it on the market, we had 9 offers, and the first offer I thought was a good offer, but then the other 8 that came the next morning were even better. So we got a good price for it. It sold super quick, and I'm just waiting for settlement right now. And in the meantime, yeah, there were these other things that had to be done as part of the condition of the sale, so pool fencing, etc., etc. Anyway, long story short, yeah. So yeah, been a bit of a struggle with my health, and got the property sold, and so now we're just waiting for settlement, and that's going to be a big strain and off my shoulders, and yeah, we'll be able to straighten things up with the crane business and have more money to put into the coupe. And eventually I'm hoping to just spend all my time working on cars. So this coupe is it's really important to me to finish it. So rest assured to everybody, as long as I'm standing, I'm going to be finishing that car. So in the meantime, I just needed to have a bit of a rest from it, having all these other things on my plate to take care of. So I do appreciate you guys out there sort of sending a message through to see if I'm all right. Yeah, I sort of had a couple of you ask me if things were okay, and it was that sort of spurred me on to sort of think I need to let you all know what's going on. And I guess I could have acted like, it's nothing major or whatever, but I just sort of thought, well, if I just tell you the truth, what's going on, then that way I'm open and I don't need to sort of answer a whole lot of different questions in the comments section. So yeah, so that's basically it. I'm pretty sure that once all this is done, my health will improve, and it's already starting to feel a bit better, and we'll be able to get back into it. So meanwhile, while I'm not physically ready to work on the car, I thought I'd just give you also a bit of insight into what's been going on behind the scenes. So I've had my engineer Con working on the rear diff. Now, I've got a photo up here of a normal 9-inch diff. This is actually the diff out of the GT that I finished building back in 2019. And although I don't have a picture of the diff fully assembled on the floor, here you can see it without the discs. This next one shows it in the car with the discs and everything on. Now, the thing is, I don't want this coupe to look crazy. Just to give an example, the width of a normal 9-inch GT diff like this one, from the surface where the wheel bolts in, that is the outside of the axle to outside of axle, those two surfaces is 1549 millimeters. Now, So that way you can afford to get, you know, fairly big wheels on them. The coupe, you can have a, you know, fairly deep dish wheel, and they do look good with deep dishes. And I'm planning on having some fairly decent three-piece wheels, you know, with deep dishes. Now, the thing with the Mustang diff, and that's what I wanted to get into this car, is I wanted to, you know, go different. I didn't want to have a off-the-shelf, you know, sort of, I don't know, run-of-the-mill type diff. I didn't want to have a 9-inch diff, because that's, you know, apologies to, you don't want to offend anybody, but that's a fairly common diff in these cars. Yeah, so like I say, I didn't want a hot rod diff. I didn't want to use a 9-inch diff. I wanted to use something unique. And the Mustang, I thought the Mustang diff would be great because, you know, all the geometry's been worked out, all the suspension's been worked out and everything. But the problem is it's too wide. It's 8 inches or 200 millimeters too wide. So started scratching my head and thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And you can, I think I've got a photo. I don't know if I've still got it in the introduction. Actually, I have to check. But I do have a photo of Con and Jason standing over the diff, scratching their heads one evening when we were here looking at it. And I was saying, well, come on, guys, what do you reckon? I reckon we can do it, you know? And, you know, Con put a lot of thought into it, but he finally worked out how to do it. It's not an easy thing to do because this is an IRS. It's an independent rear suspension, differential mounted in a cradle, and it's all pretty packed in, pretty tight. And we need to chop 200 mil out of it. And we don't want to touch the suspension because all that suspension geometry is worked out. Not only that, from a standpoint of getting the thing road registered, it's going to make it a lot easier from an engineering certification point of view if we're using some type of OEM setup. So we could have gone and built some sort of chrome moly thing and tried to calculate all the you know, suspension geometry and this, that, and the other, and then it probably would have been a nightmare to set up. We can't import something from the States because that isn't Australian. It doesn't have the Australian compliance. Doesn't, you know, ADR, whatever. So we put our minds to how do we shorten a Mustang diff and make it fit. So I gave it to Con and said goodbye and left it all up to him, and he figured that he could do it. So yeah, he put a lot of thought into it, and he managed to come up with what you can see now, which is, first of all, the Mustang rear end. In the Mustang rear end, the diff head is actually mounted off. The diff head is actually mounted to the cradle. So you've got the end cap of the diff. There's mounting points of that's mounted to the cradle, and then same on the front, the cast iron part, that's mounted to the cradle. So if you chop 200 mil out of the center of the cradle and bring the two sides together, you retain all the suspension geometry, but your diff head no longer fits in there, it doesn't bolt in there. So Con went about looking at the different options. CNCing a piece out of solid billet was going to be a little bit too expensive as a one-off type thing. So Con ended up fabricating it out of steel. And here you can see here is Con's initial designs on the computer, and you know, a couple of different aspects of it. He's printed it out on paper, and you can see that, you know, the thought that's gone into it. And here we have it in its raw form, where he's got it fabricated and he's ready to start TIG welding. He's obviously doing a trial fit here, and you know, just beautiful stuff, you know. And there he's done the TIG welding. She's finally welded in. I almost felt like I wanted to powder coat that in clear, you know, and retain that beautiful work. There's some really nice TIG welding in that. So here you can see he's got the end plate with the cast iron part, and then the front part. So these are the mount. You know, you've got the mounting points on the end there of the diff cap. Those are the, you know, the two round threaded lug parts. So that'll mount into the frame that holds everything. And then the front, you can see he's fabricated up some tubular type setup. So that'll bolt to the bottom of the diff case, and then those two pieces rising up with those bush type things are going to be bolting to the cradle. Now you can see the thing from a different angle assembled. It just looks beautiful. Yeah. So okay, in these photos, yeah, where he's put the diff head into the cradle. Everything's so tight, you know, so constrained. Apparently these diffs are really strong, so I'm not in the least bit worried about, you know, using one of these as opposed to a 9-inch. Yeah, so that's how it looks in its raw form. And then just all the standard Mustang suspension is just going to bolt up to that, everything that you would have normally, except for one thing, and that is the axles. So obviously this thing has independent rear. It's got two axles running out with CV joints. So what I did is I disassembled the CV joints, took the axle over to a guy called Anthony, who's just an unbelievable engineer. He did a lot of work on the Mad Max Fury Road movie, working on some of those crazy cars, that big Cadillac, I forget what it's called, the one that was that the main bad guy character was driving in the movie. Yeah, he did a lot of work on that. I think he did the adapter plates for gearbox to a twin supercharged engine and whatnot. So anyway, I gave the axles to Anthony. Anthony said no problem, he can make some new axles, 100mm shorter each. So yeah, we're just waiting for those to come in, and I'm just waiting until Con's got some time, because this guy's flat out all the time, until he's got some time to actually bring the diff over, and then we'll go about figuring how we're going to mount the cradle to the actual chassis rails of the car. So yeah, that'll be really interesting. So that'll be in an upcoming episode very soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then the other thing is, I thought I might show you the IRS for the front of the car. It's built by a company called United Speed Shop, who are in Newcastle, New South Wales, and they do just awesome work. They build hot rods as well as make these front ends. Yeah, all right, well, we'll just have a bit of a look at that. Anyway, when I originally spoke to Con about the front end, he said that if there was any way to fit it into my budget, he highly recommend I go for this United Speed Shop front end. They already have the thing certified or engineered as a complete unit, so it comes fully assembled, as you see here. You can just see the workmanship. It's just incredible. So you've got coilovers on the front. You've got a front-mounted rack and pinion steering, which again is great because the Coyote uses a rear-mounted sump. This setup that you're looking at is actually for XA, XB, XC Falcons, and this particular setup in the photos is set up for a Coyote engine. So yeah, basically ready-made to go into my car, XB Falcon. So yeah, and again, just incredible workmanship, attention to detail. There's a powder-coated version, and what they can also do is they'll be able to mount my Brembo brakes off the original 2016 Mustang, which, as you know, they're huge brakes. So they'll be able to mount the Brembo discs and calipers, and then that way, you see, I can retain again more of the OEM stuff from the Mustang. So essentially, by using the rear cradle and having Con shorten that diff, I'm using the same diff which matches the engine and gearbox out of the Mustang. The only thing I'm going to have to do is lengthen the drive shaft by about 100mm. Well, not that drive shaft, probably have a solid, a full length drive shaft made up. Yeah, it's only about 100mm or so further away than the original. And you know, all the brakes are going to plumb back into the you know, to the braking system of the Mustang. So I can use all of that. I can use the ABS. I can use I can't say for sure, but I have a fairly good idea I might be able to use all the original brake lines. The car is slightly longer, but by me bringing it in 200mm, it's also going to be narrower. So I don't know if these lines are going to reach or not, but we'll see if we can make them work. Yeah. So, and again, having the Brembo brakes off the Mustang mounted onto the front of this setup here, awesome. So everything's pretty much plug and play as far as driveline stuff goes once these things are in. Now, as far as weight goes, I'll double check, but from memory, Mustang, 2016 onwards Mustang is around 1,800 kilos curb weight, and the weight of a Falcon Coupe, depending whether it was a 6-cylinder or a V8, somewhere between 1,300 and 1,400 kilos. So the old Coupes were actually a lot lighter than the Mustangs. Now, I'm figuring that obviously this coupe is going to have more weight than a standard coupe. How much, I can't tell you exactly at the moment. I'm estimating that it's probably around 100 kilos heavier with the extra steel that I've added. That's with some rough calculations as to what a sheet of steel weighs. Even though some might say it's going to be too heavy. Well, guess what? Yeah, it's going to be heavier, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be still way lighter than a standard 2016 Mustang. There's other weight reductions too, like say for example, I mentioned that a Falcon Coupe, say 1,400 kilos depending on which motor you got in it, and so this is going to be somewhere between the weight of the 6-cylinder and the cast iron Cleveland. I mean, I think it's about 50 or 60 kilos lighter than a Cleveland, the Coyote that is, and possibly the gearbox too. I'm not sure if that's lighter than the old cast iron top loaders, but anyway, overall, long story short, yes, it's going to be a little heavier, I believe, than the standard Falcon, but it's going to still be a lot lighter than a modern Mustang, so hopefully that's not going to cause us any issues. The other thing which I found is that when I lifted that, because I've always sort of lifted these cars around, with a big piece of hardwood through the side windows underneath the roof frame, and then just a sling on either side, and just find the point of balance and then lift it. Now, we lifted that thing in pretty much the same place as we lifted it when it was a standard Falcon shell, position-wise that is, and the car didn't overbalance either way. So while it might be heavier, the balance hasn't been affected. It's got really good balance. And I'll tell you, to be honest, I was really expecting the front end to dip because of all that, the plating that I put on the chassis rails. But as it turned out, it may be a little heavier on the front, but it's also that weight has also been transferred to the other side towards the back. Alright guys, well, I've rambled on for quite long enough, I think. So anyway, hopefully I will be back into the actual build in another week or two, and I'll definitely want to start filming and get back on track again, so just bear with us. This build is going ahead and there are some exciting things coming up with it, and yeah, just stay tuned and take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you soon.